Hi, I'm Diana Giselle Yanez, host of Highly Sensitive Money. I'm a money coach, certified financial planner, and a highly sensitive person who brings money and social justice together. If you're someone who feels deeply, can endlessly think through how one decision affects everything else, or has ever struggled with all the things that traditional financial thinking leaves out, you're in the right place. In this show, I chat with highly sensitive people on how they handle their money, and with money experts on how they cultivate social justice in their work. Questions? Please go to allthecolors.net and schedule a free 30-minute call. And I'm happy to share resources on investment management, money coaching, workshops, or anything else money and social justice related. Join us in this episode as we explore money and sensitivity while honoring that all of our well-being is interconnected. In this episode, I invite you to explore 3 tools that can transform the way we approach money, especially when it feels overwhelming or heavy. I'll share how struggles like decision fatigue, difficult money conversations, and even the shame that comes with privilege can actually reveal powerful insights and guide us toward clarity, connection, and equity. Drawing inspiration from Le Petit Prince and the reminder that we only see well with the heart, I talk about what it means to bring heart language into our financial goals, how to prepare for money conversations in ways that feel nourishing, and how the places where we feel most stuck can point us toward healing and creativity. My hope is that this conversation helps you see your money life not as a problem to solve, but as a puzzle that can open new possibilities. Welcome to today's episode of Highly Sensitive Money. Today's episode will be a solo, and I'll be talking about 3 things I want highly sensitive people to know when it comes to navigating their money life. And the thing that really inspired me as I was thinking about how to write about this, I had just finished looking through a book from my childhood, Le Petit Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And he says, "On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur." We only see well through our heart. And that really sticks with me because as highly sensitive people, the way we look at the world is just like that, through our heart. According to an article by Psychology Today, the heart has 40,000 neurons and an electrical component about 60 times greater and an electromagnetic energy field 5,000 times greater than the brain's. So as some may think that you have to think with our brain, actually thinking with our heart may be more powerful and it may create more of what we want. And Le Petit Prince really shows us that looking through our heart is the best answer. So looking at things this way, having a heart-centered life as a highly sensitive person really gives you an incredible boost when looking at the world. Yet, as HSPs, we're taking in so much information along with all of the connections. This can have a downside. When it comes to money, common struggles for HSPs are decision fatigue, overwhelm during sensitive conversations, and even a sense of shame over inequity when we have access to unearned privilege or unearned wealth. Like the Little Prince, the path forward is focusing on the essential, which our heart can see so clearly. And I want to name a few essential things that we can use in our journey as HSPs managing money. Our highly sensitive system has a depth of insight and feeling that can be spectacular at noticing patterns and creating sequences, right? So just notice how easy it is for you to create patterns, for you to pick up causalities, for you to see connections. The second one, thanks to all of the info we take in, we can see connections for creativity. The more information you have, you can make new connections, just things that feel unrelated. I feel this is why I'm often really into metaphors, because one thing feels like another, which is why I'm using like Le Petit Prince as a guide for us managing our heart. The third one, having sensitive conversations with sensitive folks can be deeply nourishing for both parties. When you're having a conversation with another sensitive, there's a mutual tracking, a mutual clear sight that can be really, really lovely to experience. And when you're having conversations with non-sensitives, you can call out your needs, right? You can be aware of yourself and of them and stay connected. And the fourth one, HSPs have a deep desire for equity. And this points us to where changes are needed in the wider world. And this can also be a catalyst for trying out new solutions, trying out new things. In essence, the place where we struggle points us to the skill we can lean into. There's an Irish saying I heard long ago that the healing is in the wound. And this is also what I see here. So just kind of to recap, the three things that I see HSP struggle with are decision fatigue, overwhelm, or insensitive conversations, and shame over more financial access, over like just the inequity in the system. And the way to move through those is look at this bright side of decision fatigue, right? The fact that we have a really high awareness of all the connections that are possible, and that we can start to use that to create patterns and sequences and be creative. For the sensitive conversations, honestly, having a sensitive conversation with a sensitive is so much more joyful than having one with someone who's not as attuned to others. There does need to be like some caveats, right? There needs to be more space, more gentleness, but it can be a really positive experience for everyone involved. And then the shame over financial access, that's really pointing to a point of vision for how the world could be better, how the world could be different, how the world could be more equitable. So I'm going to go into each of these different things with a little bit more detail. And I'll be using some references from the Petit Prince. The first is navigating interstellar travel and managing decision fatigue. Going from where you are to where you want to be first must happen in our mind, or actually maybe it needs to happen in our heart. Our electromagnetic field of our heart needs to be aligned, attuned to where we want to be. Some things to consider with decision fatigue are having so much financial jargon, right? When you're looking at finances, the financial jargon can really be a big part of the fatigue. Past negative experiences with financial services, or just generalized distrust of financial services. And honestly, this is warranted. I remember hearing that the most well-known financial advisor was Bernie Madoff, who scammed a lot of people. So it does make sense. I mean, financial services is highly regulated for a reason because it can produce a lot of bad. So that distrust of financial services makes sense. Lack of timelines. I think this happens when you have like the grandiose vision of, oh, I will retire one day, or one day I'm going to pay off my student loans, or one day I will take a family vacation. But without an actual timeline, it can make it really difficult to make steps, to get clarity. And Le Petit Prince, the little prince, he falls, and a year later, he's like, it's been a year. The star, my home is right where I expect it to be. It's time for me to go back. So he had a timeline that he was sticking to because he needed to go back and take care of his rose. Another part of decision fatigue is previous negative experiences. So this isn't so much related to the financial services in general, but this is more like if you grew up and you always heard your family members fight about money, or if you've attempted to have money conversations and they don't turn out well, or you just have memories of it being an unhappy, uncomfortable, problematic experience, that's going to make you look at the topic and be like more repulsed for it and just kind of be like, oh, it's too much to handle. The next part of decision fatigue is feeling like you have limited resources, right? Even when I work with clients with more than enough money, they have to get really clear on defining their enough, defining what it is that they want to do with the money, because we can always buy more things. We can always subscribe to more things than we actually need and overextend ourselves. And it can feel hard to look at our resources and say like, oh, it's not everything I need. That can also feel triggering. It can feel dysregulating to say, I was on a podcast earlier this week and I was sharing how I have 6 months of emergency funds saved. But when I first started as an entrepreneur, I had a year. And how a part of me is like, well, is it really 6 months? What if I underestimated my tax bill. What if there's a crisis? What if, right? So there can be that fear, especially if your money archetype is a saguaro like me. Shout out to the money archetypes for anyone who hasn't taken the quiz, because different archetypes have different pitfalls in these areas. But as a saguaro, somebody that tends to want to save, the future is unknown, right? So how do I best know how to prepare myself? It's still important to try to go in there to create a plan and to be flexible. And the last part of decision fatigue that I want to talk about, like out of the 6 that I pointed out, are competing priorities. And this is very much about taking care of ourselves now versus taking care of ourselves later. And also taking care of ourselves versus taking care of other people versus taking rest time. So here's where all of these factors, the 6 factors, are financial jargon, distrust of financial services, lack of timelines, previous negative experiences, limited resources, and competing priorities. All of these can add to the sense of decision fatigue. How do we transform decision fatigue into clarity on next indicated step? I've got a 5-step overview here. First, start by identifying your financial goals and heart-centered language. For example, maybe instead of having a down payment for a mortgage, maybe the goal is a loving home. Maybe instead of making a certain amount of money, the goal is rest. Maybe instead of having a high status job, the goal is meaningful work, right? So look at your financial goals. Sometimes it also is your life goals, and see how can you use heart-centered language? How can we lean into such a powerful electromagnetic field in our body and have that outline what we're moving towards? The second step is to understand where you currently stand. Take stock of your current state. And I love that in Le Petit Prince, he goes from planet to planet, trying to figure out what are other people up to on their planets, just to better understand his own, right? So we need to look around and see what's happening around us, but also just like, what are your balances? What is in your retirement account? How much do you owe on debt? How much do you owe for student loans? What is your income? How much are you already saving for retirement? Like, finding out those details can feel hard, especially if you just think like, oh, money's too hard for me. However, little by little, you can break that down and start to go into it and know that this is a language that is accessible to you. Number 3 is, once you know where you currently stand and have an idea of your numbers, go back to your heart goals and add numbers to the goals. Start to do a little bit of research. Even for myself, I know this can be something that I'm hesitant to do. I have this dream of owning an apartment with a bathtub because I love bathtubs, and Mexico City doesn't really have bathtubs, and I'd love to own an apartment here. So then I had to start looking, how much do apartments cost? What will it take for me to buy one? And I remember being really hesitant to do it because there's something about adding numbers to a dream that makes them much more into a plan. And then what if I felt any kind of pressure? So I understand that hesitation, but also it can also create impetus to move faster, to move forward, and to see it as a potential, to see it as a reality, right? To see it in the vision of your heart as you're getting it out into the world. The 4th step is, now that you have the numbers, consider adding a timeline. Consider looking at this in a way that feels reasonable, that won't pressure you, and add a timeline. And all of these things, 1 through 4, are really like things that you're doing on your own at home. They're not so much things that you're doing in the outer world. Number 5, identify manageable steps towards the goals. Those are when you actually start to go from ideating, from creating it in your heart, into creating it out into the real world. And here I would say, when it comes to finances, or when it comes to everything, if you're able to afford it, outsource what drains you. This could be accounting, tax preparation. It could be investing itself if you don't find investing to be fun or if you don't want to use a robo-advisor. It can be you reviewing your insurance. There's all kinds of things when it comes to finances that can be outsourced. Bookkeeping if you're a business owner. So the manageable steps, I recommend that you make these as small and repetitive as possible. Just little things that you can get into the habit of doing over and over. I've shared many times that money looks like a math problem because it has numbers, but it's really much more of a psychology question that we are continuously answering and revising. So make these manageable steps as small as possible. An example could be weekly saving, right? Every week you put a certain amount into savings. Or it could be reviewing your retirement plans whenever there's a season change, or if you live in a place where there's a weather change, whenever you change your closet, you look at your retirement plans. But something to just like link it to an existing action. Another example that I have here is like maybe reading a money book on Wednesdays for 10 minutes. Like 10 minutes every Wednesday, you read a money book, whatever the money book is. I've got many recommendations. And just follow your heart and start to get more versed in this language, because it is important to understand the language of finance and to get yourself to a place where you're like not immediately feel lost when the money conversation is coming up. Okay. So that's the first part of understanding, navigating, transforming decision fatigue into clarity with your next steps. Next, we're going to talk about how to have nourishing money conversations. And as sensitives, we're good at this, although we may get overwhelmed. So how do we manage that connection and the overwhelm at the same time? I know that whenever I have to have sensitive conversations, be they about money or anything else, it's really helpful for me to have the conversations on my own. For me to start by like doing my own work. As sensitives and empaths, other people's feelings and stories can feel so strong that it can be completely destabilizing for ourselves. So I recommend, or what I always do is I journal out the topic or work with someone else. Maybe it's a money mentor, and a money mentor can be paid coach or your financial advisor, or even just a trusted friend, someone whose money experience and money habits you admire and trust. And talk them out to kind of understand what's going on inside of you. We need to become aware of where we stand internally on the subject and what we need before talking with another person. If you are going to be talking about your roommate, about the way that household things have been purchased, and your roommate's going through a hard time because of other things in their life, maybe you're going to say, well, I'll put this off. We'll talk about this later, but now it's been 6 months and you really enjoy your roommate, except that now you're dreading them because it's been you that's been buying all of the household things for the past 6 months and you're not sure how to bring it up. And you also haven't been keeping track of receipts. So now you're just confused and annoyed. Get really clear on what you need. Is it that you need them to acknowledge the extra work that you're doing? Is it that you need them to pay you for half of what you've already purchased in the previous 6-7 months? Is it that you need them to commit to purchasing everything for the next 6 months? Is it that you need to have more information on what's going on with their financial situation? You know that there's been an illness in their family. Is that why they haven't been able to purchase as much? Like this is kind of getting clear on your own end of like, what is it that you need? Not that the other person's going to immediately say yes, but that when you go into a conversation knowing what you need, what you want, it makes it easier for you to come to a shared agreement, as long as especially when you also listen to what they need. The next step is to ask for permission. Ask for permission. Ask for a time. Money is a taboo topic in our society, and it's often one of the leading causes of mental health stress. Ask the other person for a time and place where you can each share a money question and an issue. Also, be as specific as possible when you state the topic that you want to talk about. For example, replacing the HVAC or a conversation around who's covering shared meals, or like this example I just shared about covering household items for roommates. And see if you can frame this as a puzzle. Really, it's not as much of a problem as it's a puzzle that you're going to see the resources that you have available, the connection that you have with the other person, to see how you can come to a solution that works for everyone. And here's where sensitivity can really shine. Lean into what you know about the other person. Suggest a playful way to open and close the conversation, because it's also important to close conversations, which I'll talk about more in the next step. And maybe you'll talk about this during a walk, or when you know you'll both feel more relaxed. Most relaxed maybe is, I don't know, maybe you both play pickleball. And after pickleball on Saturday, when you're having lunch, like that feels like the perfect time because you've already had the endorphins from exercise and you don't have anything immediately on your agenda. And also, if possible, have yourself and the other person come in without the expectation of closure. Sometimes these money conversations are not really about money. I think Minachi, who I interviewed a couple of seasons ago, a few episodes ago, was saying that like money is never about the money, right? So just be prepared to know that many different parts may come in, and treat this. If you have any like communication styles that you really lean into, like maybe nonviolent communication, try to practice it out first so that you come into the conversation more relaxed and attuned and ready to be curious. Lean into curiosity. And again, lean into what helps each of you stay connected both to yourself and to the other person. I'm going to repeat that it's good to treat these questions, these money problems, as money puzzles. And also lean into curiosity. Learn more about the other person's experience. And remember to not forget your own needs or the needs of the other person. The third step is to finish the conversation. Whether you set aside an hour or 10 minutes, respect the time that you've both agreed to for the money conversation and close it, right? This can feel really difficult if you're the one that's like wanting the money conversation, and I expect that you are because you're listening to a podcast on money, and the other person's money avoidant, and the minutes are always 10 minutes and you can't actually move ahead. Like there can be times where this can be really hard. Yet you have to remember that most things don't require immediate action. If something does require immediate action, you are just going to make the best of it. Like you can't even have this framework. But if you're bringing something to this framework, to having a attuned conversation, you don't likely need immediate change. And if you do force the conversation, if you force it to keep going longer than the other person has the bandwidth for, or that you have the bandwidth for, you'll likely damage the money relationship between you. And when you talk about money while feeling dysregulated, either really angry or really wiped out, it's going to make it less likely that you're going to want to come back to it. So if your time is up, if lunch is over, if the walk is done, and the topic is still pending, if like a solution or a resolution or next steps are still pending, set up a follow-up time when you can talk about how to keep engaging with the puzzle, right? We've all had conversations where like, I think we need to spend a little bit more time on this, but yet we're so ready for it to be done that we rush forward and bring up a ramshackle agreement that doesn't actually work in the long run. Slow down. If needed, you can also hire a money coach. You can have your financial advisor be part of it. You can take this to therapy. There are always people who are able to support you, either individually and as two people who are navigating this. I'm going to now switch to the third topic, which is imagining a new world, right? This is what often clients will feel, that sense of shame over having more access. And the topic is near and dear to my heart. For as a sensitive with a lot of curiosity around money, I've always wondered how we could organize differently so that everyone has their needs met. I feel like I've thought this since I was a kid. Like, why do I have access to food when other people don't? Why do I have a warm bed to sleep in when other people don't? This has always been a question for me. And I think for most of us, we're always comparing ourselves up, like thinking they have more. But as sensitives, we also compare ourselves down. We also think like I have more. And that can create like a sense of shame. You can dive into my thinking and how to create this new world in the article I wrote a couple of months ago on how money can be a source of good. It's also a podcast. I'll make sure to link both of them. And at first, it felt so unreal for me that money could be used to create something new, that I walked away from money work. I worked in finances when I was in college, and I just thought like, that is not the way to a brave new world. That is not the way to equity, to change, to well-being for myself or for others. So I left. And it seems that in this lifetime, in this incarnation, money really is my medicine, because here I am back in this field that I loved. Oh gosh, when did I leave? I think I left in 2009 is when I stopped working in financial services and thought never. And then I was back in financial services in 2018. So almost at the 10-year mark. The clients I now get to work with are courageous enough to put their money where their heart is. And courageous is the word cur, is in it, which means heart in French, and I imagine in Latin. According to Brene Brown, psychologist and expert on shame, shame is the feeling of I am bad, while guilt is the feeling of I did something bad. The increasing inequality in the world leaves those of us with privilege feeling as if we are bad and need to hide whatever access we may have, when in fact it's the system that's corrupt. A babe born into wealth is no more guilty for their circumstances than one born into poverty. We are not in charge of the situation that we are born into. We are in charge of how we use it moving forward. Also, Brene Brown tells us that the antidote to shame is sharing the secret, that shame really grows and festers in secrecy. And this doesn't mean you need to tell everyone what your financial situation is, what your net worth is, what your financial access is, but you can start by sharing it with a trusted other. Maybe it is your financial advisor. Maybe it's a close friend. I know that for youth dealing with wealth, Resource Generation, which I'll link to this, are also really helpful community. And continue to take action to create a new world, right? Like we can use our privilege to create change. And by acknowledging how much of it is circumstantial, how much of it is outside of our control, we can start to actually, instead of blaming each other or blaming ourselves, we can start to create change. And some of my favorite ways of doing that are community investing, where you're really focusing on social impact in addition to returns. You can, and I talked about this in the last episode, but I won't go into it, but I was really, an overview was like how you earn, save, spend, give, and invest, and how to do it where money can be a source of good. So to wrap up today's episode, this is really one for all of my HSPs out there who are overwhelmed with the money journey, who have a depth of processing that makes them feel that there's really too much going on, that's too many things, and that the emotional roller coaster involved is not worth going into it, that they would rather stick with ostrich tendencies and just pretend it's not really happening. And we can turn all of those things into assets. Going back to the quote I said earlier, that the healing is in the wound. Look at what it is that's causing you the most problems with money and see what the other side of the coin is. For example, if you are overspending, find out why you're overspending. What is it that you're trying to get when you spend that money? What is it that's happening inside of you? Really go into inquiry without any judgment, just with a lot of curiosity. And see what type of needs are you filling by spending, that maybe spending isn't actually filling those needs, which is why you have to keep spending, right? If you have a need for care and rest and you're doing it by going out to eat or buying shoes or whatever it is going out to eat and buying shoes actually creating rest? Maybe what you actually need is a staycation, is like to stay home or to have more open space, more blank space in your agenda, which is something that as HSPs, we often just need some like unstructured downtime. Just lead with curiosity. Remember the on ne va bien qu'avec le cœur. Look at your money situation, look at your money puzzles through your heart and see what becomes visible through that. Thanks for listening to today's episode. As we close today's conversation, I want to leave you with this reminder. The very struggles we face with money often hold the keys to our healing. Decision fatigue can become a doorway into clarity and creativity. Overwhelm and money conversations can be softened into connection when we honor both our needs and those of others. And even the shame that arises around privilege or inequity can spark a vision for a more equitable world. Like the Little Prince teaches us, what matters most is often invisible to the eye. It's felt in the heart. If you can meet your own money challenges with curiosity instead of judgment, you may find that they carry the seeds of transformation. Thank you for joining me on Highly Sensitive Money. I'm Diana Giselle Yanez, and I hope this episode helped you see how money and sensitivity can work together while honoring our interconnected well-being. We have the power to create a system where everyone's needs are met because nature is abundant. If you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to leave a review and share this episode with someone who could benefit. Your support helps this message reach more people navigating their own financial journeys. A thank you goes to Mike Schul for the music and Juan Antonio Nunez for producing. For more resources on bringing money and social justice together, sign up for my monthly newsletter over at allthecolors.net. I also invite you to schedule a free 30-minute call where we can talk about money coaching, investment management, and all things money and social justice. Until next time, remember that your sensitivity and deep thinking is your superpower.